First of all, you want to look under your skills menu in the Daedric Summoning skill tree. This is where all of your sorcerer pets are situated. So you've got 3 main pets that you can use, and each of those pets has an unmorphed version and 2 possible morphs. We'll start with the unstable familiar. So your first pet that you get access to at level 1. So command the powers of Oblivion to send a Daedric familiar, it's that guy there, to fight at your side. The familiar's attacks deal shock damage plus additional damage at each rank. Once summoned, you can activate the familiar's special ability, dealing shock damage every 2 seconds for 8 seconds to enemies near him. The familiar remains until killed or unsummoned. So we'll look at the familiar and what he does. When you morph him, you have on the one hand unstable clan fear and volatile familiar. But as he is in his original state, once he's summoned, you'll notice a bit of a cast time there. Okay, press him again, and he starts to pulse, which will do AoE damage to all targets in the area. So this is the unmorphed version of the familiar. So that's to unsummon him. 1 click, out he comes. With a cast time, then an instant cast ability to cause him to do AoE damage for 4 pulses. Okay, get rid of him, and let's morph him. First morph we'll look at will be the unstable clan fear. Okay, let's bring him out. There he is. And this guy deals 1,749 physical damage plus an additional 30%. He can also tail swipe nearby enemies. Once summoned, you can activate the Clanfear's special ability, healing you and the Clanfear for 35% of your max health. So let's go and see what he does. So he's doing a bit of a headbutt there on Tiger. He seems to draw a bit of aggro. They prefer him over me. And if I press him again, I go up to max health, and so does the Clanfear. He's intended as a tank. A lot of solo players and new players will use the Clanfear. See, he was killed there. I'll bring him back out. My health goes low. Press him, we heal up. A lot of solo and new players will use the Clanfear as a tank, and they find it very helpful in overland content. But I would not call yourself a tank as a consequence of using the Clanfear, because it doesn't aggro, it doesn't crowd control enemies in a way that a fully built tank would. So there we go, that's what the Clanfear is about. He doesn't deal a great deal of damage, but he draws aggro onto himself, and you can activate him to heal yourself and your pet. So we're going to remorph to the volatile familiar. Okay, bringing out the volatile familiar. It's very similar to the original familiar, yet he deals more damage and stuns with the final attack. So we're going to send him in to this Spriggan and see what he does. Okay, so you notice the Spriggan again is attacking the familiar, so it too will tank a little bit for you if you require that. Just send it in first. If I activate the familiar, you'll notice that my targets start to lose health very quickly, so he's much better at damaging than is the Clanfear. So if you plan to do a DD roll, the Volatile Familiar is a very good choice. He's for damage dealing pet sorcerers. The Clan Fear is more just something a bit helpful for doing solo content and quests. So if you're going to do dungeons, pick the Volatile Familiar. Okay, so over to the Twilight. We will summon a Winged Twilight, colon Azura, to send a Winged Twilight to fight at your side. The Twilight's attacks deal shock damage plus additional damage at each rank. Once summoned, you can activate the Twilight's special ability, causing it to heal the Twilight and one other friendly target for quite a bit of health. So let's bring it out and see what we can do. So we'll get the Twilight to attack this imp and see what happens. Again, it sends in aggro to the Twilight if the pet attacks first. It does a fair bit of damage, not quite as much as the activated Scamp, but certainly more than the Clan Fear. So we'll pick the other morph now. Well, we haven't morphed it at all. But I won't actually show you the Matriarch because, as you'll notice here, the Winged Twilight heals you and one other friendly. Heals the Twilight and one other friendly target when you activate it. The Matriarch, when you activate it, heals the Twilight and 2 friendly targets for an additional amount of health. So it's the same concept, except it's healing you for more. Even though it suggests that it's a healing skill, it still deals enough damage to be useful to a DD, and it helps hugely for your survivability. So personally, the Twilight Matriarch is my favorite skill in the whole game. But if you want to maximize your damage with a flying pet, the other option is the Twilight Tormentor. Once summoned, you can activate the Twilight Tormentor's special ability, causing it to deal 50% more damage to enemies above 50% health for 15 seconds. So we'll take the Tormentor and see what he does. So pick another imp, we'll activate it and send it in. It's probably doing a bit more damage than the Matriarch, but as you can see, it's not a huge deal of damage based on whichever morph you choose there. The difference isn't enormous. Okay, so those are our 2 pets that we can have out continuously. These pets never die unless they are killed or unsummoned. There's one additional pet that we can have as a sorcerer, which is an ultimate ability, which is the Storm Atronach. So that slots into the ultimate ability thingy there, and we're going to gain a bit of ultimate here and then see what the Storm Atronach does. Right, so I now have enough ultimate to cast an ultimate ability, the Storm Atronach. Down he goes. And as you can see, he deals a lot of damage. But he's only around for 21 seconds, and then I need to build up 170 ultimate again to cast it again. The Atronach doesn't move, it stays in place, and it will attack any enemy within 28 meters. It will also stun any enemy that it hits as you cast it when it first lands. Now there are 2 morphs here. One is the Greater Storm Atronach, which is generally the one I go for. It makes it last a really long time, 28 seconds. So it's doing a lot of damage during that time. It's very good for times when you have a single target boss fight and you want to deal all your damage to that one target. The other morph is a Charged Atronach, which lasts 21 seconds. And it deals a bit of AoE damage every 3 seconds. Oh no, what does it do? it doesn't actually say, no, it stuns enemies for 3 seconds, but it doesn't actually say what the area of effect is. I think it's not very regular that it does this. Every 5 seconds to 7 seconds or something like this. It might only do it 3 or 4 times throughout its existence for 21 seconds. But it's going to do some area of effect damage. The Greater Storm Atronach will do more single target damage, and the Charged Atronach should do more area of effect damage. So that's the difference. Because as sorcerers we have access to the best AoE skill in the game, Destructive Rage, the Destruction skill ultimate, we can generally ignore the Charged Atronach and choose the Greater Storm Atronach. So then one skill that focuses on sustained single target damage, and over here we've got Thunderous Rage found in the Destruction Staff skill line, which is amazing AoE. It's slightly less damage over a sustained single target fight, but really good AoE. So choose Greater Atronach for single target, Thunderous Rage for AoE. So that's about everything there is to know about the morphs. You've got your 3 pets, you've seen each morph of the 2 static pets, and each morph of the ultimate ability, the Storm Atronach. Okay, so in this section of the video I'm going to show you the utility skills that are generally used by a PetSorc, in addition to their pets, that help to increase the damage and the survivability of the pets themselves. So the 2 main skills that we're going to be looking at here are your Daedric Prey and your Conjured Ward. So these are the other 2 skills. In fact, the Bound Aegis isn't particularly relevant to PetSorc, you can use it or not. Daedric Prey and Empowered Ward are both essential skills in the PetSorc's tooltip. So first of all, Daedric Prey, let's look at that. This is actually a morphed version of Daedric Curse. So this starts out as Daedric Curse, morph it to Daedric Prey if you're playing in PetSorc. The other morph, Haunting Curse, is better if you're playing a non-PetSorc, but if you're playing a PetSorc you want Daedric Prey. So curse an enemy with a destructive rune, dealing magic damage to the target and magic damage to all other nearby targets after 6 seconds. While the curse is active, so for those 6 seconds, your pets deal an additional 55% damage to the target, except your Storm Atronach, which only deals an additional 40% damage. You can only have 1 Daedric Prey active at a time. So we're going to check out these tigers here and see what Daedric Prey does. So in order to demonstrate it, we'll send in cast Daedric Prey and then send in the pets. So the pets are dealing increased damage, it explodes, and that's how it works. There's another tiger here. If I just send in the pets without Daedric Prey, we should notice that they deal less damage. Yeah, quite a bit less damage. So Daedric Prey there increases the damage the pets deal and explodes after 6 seconds, also dealing damage. So it's an essential skill in your toolkit as a PetSorc. Now, if I send in a pet to this imp, I'll hover over the Twilight Matriarch. Notice her health bar. When I cast Empowered Ward, which is the next skill in the set that we're going to talk about, it gives me a damage shield, which you can see on my health bar there, and it also gives a damage shield to both of my pets. So you can see that that's indicated by cloudy red line over the health bars. When it dissipates, it becomes bright again. So this skill, Empowered Ward, in addition to protecting me, it's also going to protect my pets. There are two morphs of this skill, which I will show you. One morph, Empowered Ward, I recommend for playing in PvE, and Hardened War is probably still a little bit better for PvP. So here's your base morph, Conjured Ward. It lasts 6 seconds and protects you and your pets. Hardened Ward lasts 6 seconds, protects you and your pets, and your own ward absorbs 20% more damage. So a lot of people will use that in PvP because it will protect you more against burst damage. In PvE, on the other hand, Empowered Ward, it costs a bit less. It gives Magicka recovery of 10% to you and your group. Okay, so it's a bit weaker than Hardened Ward, but it lasts longer and costs less. So I would recommend Empowered Ward for PvE, and you can experiment between Hardened and Empowered in PvP to see what works best for you. So if you're playing a PetSorc, you really need these two skills slotted, Empowered Ward and Daedric Prey, if you're in addition to your pets. So in this section of the video I want to tell you a bit about how to maximize the damage and the healing, in fact, that your pets will provide for you. Maximize the size of your wards and your overall DPS output. So without going into details of builds and rotations, I just want to explain a few basic concepts. First thing is that the damage dealt by your Sorcerer pets scales exclusively off your stat, Max Magicka. The higher your maximum Magicka is, the more damage your pets will deal. Spell damage is relevant to all other Magicka skills in the game, but does not affect the damage that your Daedric summoning pets deal. So, at the moment, you'll notice I've got 2005 spell damage. My Volatile Familiar's attacks deal 1391 shock damage, and when I activate it deals 4417 shock damage. Now, I'm going to drink a potion here to give myself my major sorcery, which increases my spell damage, as you can see. But the damage tooltip of my Volatile Familiar is exactly the same. So this means we're going to have to make special considerations when playing a Pet Sorcerer and focus a great deal more on increasing our maximum Magicka. 50k plus is what to shoot for when you're max level, as opposed to maximizing our spell damage. Now, you'll hear people talking about sets like Burning Spellweave. You'll hear people talking about things like Ceruria. These sets hugely increase your spell damage, but have a very minimal effect on your max Magicka. On the other hand, a set which is almost indispensable for every Pet Sorcerer in the game, what you need to aim for is Necropotence. There it is, 2, 3, 4 and 5 items, all increase your max Magicka. You should also put glyphs on all of your armor pieces that increase your max Magicka. Now there are 3 Mundus stones here, which will be used by sorcerers at different times. The Apprentice Stone increases your spell damage, so it's probably not the one you want to go for. The Lover increases your spell penetration, which helps overcome enemies' resistances. It makes your attacks do more damage. So that's one possibility. It does work very well. Another possibility, which is probably the one you want to aim for to begin with, is the Mage. Increases your maximum magicka, so that's the Mundus Stone I would recommend for you. If you're taking the Mage Mundus Stone, in order to get the most out of it, you want to have your robe, breeches, and your helmet all to have infused traits on them. Notice they're all infused. You want your other pieces, your shoulders, your gloves, your sash, and your feet to all have Divine's traits on them. And while I'm at it, something that you definitely want as a Pet Sorcerer to be using is at least 5 pieces of light armor. And you want all the passives from the light armor skill tree. So I've mentioned one set that you need, Necropotence. It comes in light armor, so that's great. There are other ways of increasing your magicka further that you'll learn as you go through the game, particularly once you get into ranking up Undaunted and doing dungeons. You'll notice this skill here, Undaunted Metal, increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% per type of armor that you have equipped, heavy, medium, and light. So my bonus is 6% because I have 5 pieces of light armor, 1 piece of medium armor, and 1 piece of heavy armor. So I need 5 pieces of light armor in order to gain the benefit of all the light armor passives, but by using 1 medium and 1 heavy, I can access Undaunted Metal. So, I've mentioned one set that you should use, Necropotence. What other sets are good to have? A really nice one is, which I think is actually the best raw damage in the game at the moment for a Pet Sorcerer, is Undaunted Infiltrator. This will drop from the dungeon Arx Corinium, which you can farm as many times as you want until you've got 3 pieces of jewellery and a lightning staff. Generally, you'll want to use 2 lightning staves as a Pet Sorcerer. We gain a benefit to shock damage of 5%, and it applies some nice debuffs to the enemies. So going 2 shock damage staves is generally the way to go. Other good sets include Destruction Mastery. You could use Elegant, it's not a bad set. And one that's again particularly good that I don't have at the moment, if this is just the PTS, is Spinner's Gear. It's really good as a front bar set. People may also complain at you for using Spinners, but I've got 46,000 DPS on the combat dummy using Spinners. It's really good. So if you go the route of Necropotence and Spinners as well, another great benefit is that you can buy all of that gear at a guild shop. There's no need to farm any of it. The same goes with Destruction Mastery. That drops in Dragonstar Arena, but it's bind on equip rather than bind on pickup, so that can also be sold. And you should be able to find some Destruction Mastery items in guild stores. So actually, a great benefit to a Pet Sorcerer is that you can get started really easily without having to farm anything. Grab yourself some Necropotence, some Spinners or Destruction Mastery, and you're good to go. So I'll try to tell you here what a few of the problems are that you can encounter as a Pet Sorc, where your pets might be troublesome, and how to mitigate those troubles as best as possible. So the first thing you need to learn is how to utilize the pet command key binding. First of all, I'll show you here controls key binding. Under combat, the last thing it shows here is command pet. This is so poorly explained and they really need to sort it out. This is why nobody knows about this. It says command pet Y. I can spam the Y button all I want and the pet does nothing. You'll see this for yourself. However, if I click Y and then left click, my pets will attack the target that I'm aiming at. If I click Y and then right click, the pets will return to my side and they will not attack a target until I either press Y and left click or I heavy attack. Doing either Y and left click or heavy attack will both cause the pets to attack the target. And pressing Y then right click will call the pets back to your side. So it's good practice as a pet sorcerer to, before every boss fight, press Y and right click. While your group is forming up and your tank is getting ready to pull, your pets will never cause any trouble. However, if you don't press Y and right click, if another member of the group happens to get a little bit too close to the boss, you might notice its head will flash red. That means it's getting ready to be aggroed, and a person might step forward, oh it'll flash red, but I get back quickly enough, the boss won't actually aggro. The problem is that as soon as that red head flash occurs, unless you have pressed Y and right click, your pets will immediately run in and start attacking the target, causing the fight to begin. So this leads to the false impression that pets are aggroing the boss. Pets never aggro the boss. It's always a player that aggroes the boss. And the reason the pets charge in is because the boss has been aggroed by somebody. However, as you can see, even if I completely aggro this target by attacking it, I've pressed Y and right click beforehand, my pets do not go in until I tell them to go in. Okay, so that is number one. How to avoid getting hate as a PetSorc, by never letting your pets run in before the right time by pressing Y and right click before each boss fight. Now, in addition to this issue with aggro, which we've debunked as a myth, we have to learn that there are a couple of instances which ZeniMax has not managed to code in a pet-friendly way. And maybe they'll address these issues at some point in the future, maybe they won't. But currently there are certain instances in which essentially the problem is that a sorcerer pet is treated as a player for the purposes of attracting aggro and extra red circles to the group. The main instances in which this occurs are Aetherian Archive at the last boss and Asylum Sanctorium at the last boss. During these two instances, for reasons beyond anyone's comprehension, the pets are treated as players in your group for the purpose of boss aggro, and as a result they bring more damage causing effects into the group than is worth having them. If you want to use pets during Asylum Sanctorium, it's possible, but you've got to be very hot on your calling and returning of your pets. During Aetherian Archive, you can, without any trouble whatsoever, use the Twilight Matriarch. The Matriarch won't cause any problems there. People will say, get rid of your pets, but tell them it's only the Scamp that causes a problem there. You can replace your Scamp with another skill and continue using the Matriarch. The problem with the Scamp is that whenever players are too close together in the instance, they receive an effect called Chain Lightning, and as you can see, the Scamp just stays around the boss, so any stamina players who are also fighting this boss will be in close range of the Scamp and will take extra damage from Chain Lightning, which makes the Scamp very difficult to use in Ethereum Archive, but these are just coding errors in a couple of specific instances. Majority of the time they're perfectly fine. There may be certain dungeons where they're often stunned, certain trials when they often get crowd controlled. They become a bit annoying during that point for you personally, but to the group they're not going to be causing any trouble there. So if you just remember these two instances, Ethereum Archive and Asylum Sanctorium, think about your build and how you want to proceed. Otherwise, PetSorc is perfectly viable for everything in the game. And it has great damage, great survivability, so if you choose PetSorc, I think you've made a good choice and a fun choice. You're going to get prejudice directed your way, probably just because people wish they could have pets as well. But anyway, I haven't got a lot more to say about things without getting into specific builds and such, or demonstrating in dungeons, so I'll just leave it at that. I think that's pretty much all the basics you need to know about how to play Pet Sorcerer and the choices available to you. So hopefully this has been of some use, and thanks for watching. If you want to carry on learning about PetSorc, I've got lots of build videos for more advanced players, and I've got lots of demonstrations where I'm doing Maelstrom Arena, or where I'm doing dungeons, soloing stuff, just so you can see the Pet Sorcerer in action. So check those out if you want to know more. In the meantime, happy hunting, see you again.